There's just so much like history and culture behind it, and it's so fascinating where all these recipes come from. It's a type of food where like the traditions are passed on between generations. Find someone who doesn't like barbecue, right? Like how can you not like it? Big slabs of meat served with mac and cheese and coleslaw and baked beans and all that good stuff. Everybody loves it. My name's Borys from the Lancaster Smokehouse, chef and co-owner here at the restaurant. Our big thing is like southern and soul food and barbecue. So the way that I see it, we kind of have two sides to what we offer our customers. We do like traditional barbecue, brisket, pulled pork, ribs, and then we also offer, I call it like soul food, shrimp and grits, gumbo, jambalaya, fried chicken, all that good stuff. So, and we try and keep it as traditional as possible here. A lot of fun is exploring those kind of old recipes that might be forgotten about and left on a shelf, and then you can kind of find a way to bring them back to life, but also make them your own. Barbecue, when you travel the States, is quite different. You know, the Carolinas and Memphis, and then you go to Texas where it's really all about beef and everything. What's kind of liberating about doing it in Canada is you can kind of do whatever you want. You can steal from each place. So if we were in the States and, you know, if you're serving Texas barbecue in Carolina, they might roll their eyes at you a little bit. So here we kind of get away with it. We'll do Texas short ribs and beef brisket like you might find in Texas, but then we're using a sweet tomato sauce that, you know, you're not going to be finding in the Carolinas. It's a constant fine tuning of all of our meats, trying to get them perfect. So, you know, every day's a little bit different depending on the temperature and the humidity in the air and how big the meat was and how fatty that piece of meat was and all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of been a constant journey ever since day one, understanding meat, and I think you could probably spend a lifetime trying to learn it and perfecting it. Trial and error with whether it's barbecue or any kind of cooking is maybe the most important part of the whole process, which is just, did I like that product that came out at the end? Do I need a little more salt? Do I need a little less salt? Does it need to be cooked longer? You just got to eat a lot of barbecue. Best way to make good barbecue is starting with great meat. So we use all Ontario pork, and Ontario pork, in my opinion, is the best pork in the world. And then we use all Canadian beef, and it's got a lot of flavor, it's got a lot of fattiness, it's got a lot of marbling throughout the meat so that you know that you're gonna end up with a really nice, tender, juicy, flavorful product. Barbecue, it uses tough meats. So the shoulder, the brisket, they're all, the ribs, they're all tough cuts of meat that you need to cook for a long period of time at a low temperature, and you break down all that connective tissue and all that fat renders, and that's what really adds all that flavor. And then that really long, slow cook allows it to cook evenly and all the fat kind of render out of it and all the muscles relax. And that to me is the biggest flavor component. Everything else takes a big back seat. So whether it's the rub or if you're just using salt and pepper or your wood, we use hickory, local hickory. Those are all important, but to us it takes a backseat to just the quality of the meat and the initial flavor of that meat. If you want to do your own smoke at home, let's take brisket as the example, because brisket is kind of, it's the gold medal of the meat world. If you can smoke a brisket, then you know how to smoke most things. So start with a brisket. What you want to do is you want to find a butcher that's going to give you the whole brisket. So there's two muscles on a brisket. There's a flat and a point. You want to make sure that you buy one that's where they're connected and they haven't been separated, and that can be tricky to find. If you buy a brisket in a grocery store or pre-cut at a butcher, often they will separate those two muscles, and neither of them smoke properly without the other one being attached to it. The one is almost too fatty when it's left alone, which is the point, and it can just end up being too fatty, and it can kind of cook away to almost nothing, whereas the flat can be too dry without the point. So what you want to do is you want to go get a full entire brisket, and then go on YouTube, look up a quick video of how to trim a brisket so you have an even fat cap throughout the whole thing. And then when it comes to seasoning, that can be as simple or as complicated as you like it. Ours is pretty complicated. It's got a lot of ingredients on our rub. You can do salt and pepper, and some of the best smokehouses out there do just use salt and pepper. So when you're smoking the meats, you can set it and forget it to an extent. And what's going to happen is you're going to kind of have to understand what that final product is going to be, and then understanding maybe your mistakes. So maybe you trimmed it too much and it's a little dry, or maybe you didn't trim it too much and the fat didn't render off. So it's something where you kind of have to understand the process, put it in the smoker, and then it is a little bit of setting it and forgetting it until it comes out. And then when it comes out, then you test the product and you see, maybe it needs a little more salt or a little more pepper, or it needs a little bit longer, a little less time on the smoker, or maybe it needs a little more smoke and you throw a couple extra logs in there. So you're always playing with it and fine tuning it. And then the biggest thing with smoking meat is just finding that perfect temperature where it's time to take it off and let it rest for a long time. So what we find that works for us is at 190 degrees, we take it off, and it's kind of just in between that stage of it slices clean, but it also pulls. And then that's how we know that it's going to be perfectly cooked and melt in your mouth. My siblings were all watching TV while my mom was making dinner. I was up there with her, like cutting onions and chopping celery and all that kind of stuff. My mom's lasagna was always kind of my favorite thing and still is. So that intrigued me, and I like the idea of like the process behind that, and all the steps and all the time and all the love and labor and knowledge that goes into making that final dish that everybody loves so much. So for me, it's started there as a kid, and it kind of hasn't left me. I definitely pursued some other, or thought about pursuing some other career options. I always had it in the back of my head, but our society thinks that if you're in the restaurant industry that you're going to make no money and you're going to have to work evenings and weekends and all that kind of stuff. As employers, we've done our best to kind of change that here at the Smokehouse by allowing a bit of a flexible schedule and paying people above the industry standard. But for me, it took a big journey to kind of realize that I was probably going to be doing this for life. Even after I graduated culinary school and I got offered a full-time position, I decided to go back to university and finish my degree that I had started there, because I didn't want to make no money for the rest of my life, and I didn't want to work every Saturday for the rest of my life. Aside from all those negative factors that people kind of beat into you and my instructors at culinary school beat into me, once I kind of got past that and saw that that wasn't the only option for this industry and that you can have a life and still work in food service, I think that is what allowed me to actually come to peace with the fact that this is probably what I want to do. Running a restaurant in itself is a constant obstacle. Staffing is an issue, and quality, and you're only as good as the last plate that you sent out, and trying to keep your customers not only happy but have them coming back on a regular basis. Those are all huge obstacles. It also takes a lot of work running a barbecue restaurant, especially, I would say, arguably more than most restaurants, because something's going on 24/7 here. I've seen it happen in Kitchener and outside of Kitchener for sure, where you have one restaurant, it's a great spot, everybody loves it, and then eventually they're doing so well that they open up a second and a third and a fourth location, and then all of a sudden the first one's not as good as it used to be. So to me, that would just be heartbreaking. Right now, we're happy with just focusing on putting out some really good barbecue. I think for us and for myself, it's just having integrity in your work, I think, is what it comes down to. The way that I'm able to happily come to work and sleep well at night and all that kind of stuff is just by knowing that we're doing our best and that we're putting out a quality product. And if we made some shortcuts, and we could take some shortcuts here, we could buy frozen meats, and we never do that. We only buy fresh meats. That just wouldn't feel right. It just wouldn't be true to what we do here and what myself and Chris and Katie, the other two owners, have tried to do all these years, which is provide a really quality service. We're not interested in just making money. That's part of it, because we're running a business, of course. But really, our focus is on putting out a good product and at the same time having a great place for people to work. Yeah, it's just good, delicious food that you can kind of make your own. Some people think Canadians, they can't cook that food, but we definitely can. I never wake up feeling like I'm going to work. I never wake up feeling like I'm dreading work. I wake up thinking that, you know, I enjoy what I do, and I'm excited for the day, and every day is different.
Take me